My name is Diana Herman Gross. The first real cowboy in my life was my uncle, Ralph Murray. He made many lasting impressions in my life.
Hello, I'm Wayne Herman. Ralph Murray was my great uncle. We always called him Uncle Ralph.
In the era of my nephew, PRCA World Champion Wayne Herman, we took Ralph and Ella out to the National Finals Rodeo one year. As we walked into the Thomas and Mack Arena that first night, I heard someone say, "There's Ralph Murray." Well, every time Uncle Ralph went out to the concessions, he'd come back with a big smile saying, "Guess who I just saw?" It happened every night. Ralph, always wearing that black hat. It was a reunion of so many rodeo folk that he'd known through the years, and they remembered him. To me, that measures his influence on rodeo and ranching, not only in North Dakota, but also throughout the country.
And Ralph knew people everywhere. He was that kind of guy that everybody loved. He knew cattle. When we go to brandings and weaning, whatever, working cattle, the true test of a man, in my opinion, is working cattle. And you see their true colors come out. And Ralph, I don't think I ever saw Ralph mad. I don't know if I ever saw him cuss, or heard him cuss, I should say. And Ralph was the kind of guy that was always in the right place at the right time when things were happening. If there's something wrong with a cow or a horse, a calf, the first thing out of anybody's mouth is have Ralph look at it. Have Ralph look at it. He was a veterinarian without going to vet school. He worked for the vets in Beulah when he retired, semi-retired.
When it came time to prepare the Beulah rodeo grounds for the Cowboys Reunion Rodeo, it was Uncle Ralph who called in the troops. After all, this rodeo was called the granddaddy of them all, as at that time it was the longest-running rodeo in North Dakota. And for decades, Ralph Murray was instrumental in producing and organizing this rodeo. He was seen in the arena as the director, but also as a pickup man, and behind the scene making sure the rodeo was a success.
Ralph, above all, was a very good man, a very honest, straightforward, good guy that everybody loved and liked. And to me, Ralph Murray exemplified the type of people that made North Dakota the great state that it is today.
In my memory, Ralph Murray was the exemplification of the cowboy life. His faith in God, love for his family, his pride in rodeo, hard work in ranching were true of his character, but more so it was his honesty, his respect for everyone regardless of age, his integrity and humility. That made him a real cowboy.
Thank you, Don. This is a hard act to follow, but we're going to do it because we've got a good nominee here, and although his accolades may not be quite as, are you hearing me okay? May not be quite as illustrious as the ones you just heard, he is certainly a true and real cowman, rancher that deserves to be in the Cowboy Hall of Fame. I have a letter here that Casey brought, and this is my friend Casey Voigt. We're both from Beulah, and I'm so glad to see him here because a while ago when we were having our meetings, I thought I was the only person from District 6 here. Anyway, this letter is from Ralph Murray's daughter, Pat, who couldn't be here, and she lives in Fargo, and it's a very nice accolade to her dad and very deserving. She said, "I have been very blessed to be Ralph and Ella Murray's daughter. Since I could not be here in person today, I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts. My dad was truly a cowboy and a gentleman, and that's what I would think about Ralph. You know, I knew him maybe not most of my life, but a long time. Dad was also one of the most humble men I know, so much so that if he were here, he'd probably be a little embarrassed that we were making all this fuss about him. And isn't that typical of a lot of true cowboy rancher people? They're not out there telling you what they did. My husband, Cal, and I had the privilege of caring for Dad in his home in the last months of his life. It was amazing to see all the people, young and old, who stopped to visit him and reminisce. Whether the memories were from the early days looking out for his parents and siblings, to the many years of supporting rodeo and the folks in it, to the neighbors and the hired hands from his ranching years, or the town folks he got to know in his retirement, everyone had good memories of time they spent with him. He lived his life with grace, dignity, and a charming sense of humor. He set a high bar for the rest of us to live up to. Pat says, I'm grateful that my 3 children all are old enough to have some memories of Dad. I only wish he could have met their spouses and gotten to know his 4 great-grandchildren. 2 of them carry on his name, Colin Murray Saylor and Liam Ralph Saylor. She says, I have really poured my heart into putting together the whole nomination form and biography, and appreciate the many people that helped contribute to the content. Mom lives with us now, and some of her memories were included too. I'm very grateful to Dean Helling for sponsoring this nomination. No matter how it comes out from here, it's been an honor to be part of the process, and I'm sure if Dad is watching, there's a grin on his face and a twinkle in his eyes. And I think that's very lovely from his daughter. I knew Ralph as a, really fine person in Beulah who always led the Cowboys Reunion Rodeo events, the parade, the high school. Beulah used to be a rodeo town. And, just because the big lake came in, there's still some of us that maintain its roots were rodeo, long before there was a lake to draw people away from what's really important. And Ralph was one of those people that was out there in the front of the parade carrying the flag and looking so right doing it. The ranch that Casey will speak to and that he lives on right now is the ranch that Ralph Murray owned and operated for many years, the Keogh Ranch, which was one of the earliest ranches in Mercer County. And I just would like to say, as a charter member of the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame, that I'm honored and pleased to be able to ask for you to vote for Ralph. He was truly a real rancher, a man deserving to be in the Cowboy Hall of Fame. And here's Casey Voigt.
Hi, I'm Casey Voigt, and I have the honor today to talk to you about Ralph Francis Murray, the greatest man I ever knew. Ralph, we would have never knew that talking to Ralph. He was always so humble and modest. He just looked at life as he was just doing what anybody else was doing or would do. He just thought of it as doing what needed to be done and never thought that he was doing all the exceptional things that he actually did. He was a true cowboy. He trained his own horses, trained his mules, did all of his own work, did a lot of work all by himself, as a matter of fact. He was a cowboy that competed in the bareback riding and relay races, and was one of the founding fathers of the North Dakota Rodeo Association. He was one of the charter members of the Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City. He was a long-standing board member with the Cowboys Reunion Rodeo. Most of the people that served with him say he was the backbone that kept the organization going as long as it did. He had the high school state finals there for many years. Just tremendous supporter of rodeo. He never traveled. He always felt he needed to stay home with his livestock and take care of his livestock. He built the ranch south of Zap that I now live on, and he started from scratch and worked with the Keoghs that owned the land at the time and ran cattle there. And eventually in 1948 he bought the ranch from them and went on his own. He, in the 60s, started drilling artesian wells because he knew that deep water wells were the way to provide more gain for your cattle, and started building cross fences so that he could seasonally rotate to pastures and contain and utilize the grass better. In the 60s, he started going out to Miles City and buying Hereford bulls and bringing them back. He also would buy mules from out in Montana and bring them to drive the sled to feed his Hereford cattle with. He was influential in helping his brother-in-law, Ed Unruh, make the decision to bring some of the first Santa Gertrudis cattle into North Dakota. Those genetics still carry on today in the Unruh Cattle Company herd. The Hereford genetics that Ralph actually had carried on into my herd. My father, Don Voigt, bought the Coyote Creek Ranch from Ralph Murray in 1971, and along with that, we bought 100 head of Ralph's cows, so his genetics carried on. The artesian wells are still working today. The fences that he built a lot out of railroad tracks for corner posts, they're still standing. He was a leader always. He was involved with the 4-H for many, many years. I think his true calling, he probably should have been a professor, and he could have maybe taught patience, I think. One of the stories that was told to me was by Dr. Wayne Boland, who was the state vet for North Dakota for a number of years. He said they were working on a horse in the vet clinic one time, and the horse was giving him quite a bit of trouble. So Doc, he kind of got a little upset and hollered at the horse a little bit, and Ralph calmly said, "Wayne, you can call that horse any name you want to, as long as you do it in a soft, firm voice." He was someone I always admired for his horsemanship. He, like I said, trained his own mules for driving, broke his own horses. When we first moved to the ranch, he had a big black horse he called Thunder, and not only was he broke to ride and rope off of and everything else, but when one of the mules wasn't feeling good, he hooked him up to the sled and pulled him as a team. I've got the privilege, like I say, to live on a ranch that Ralph built, and it is a very nice ranch that he's had the foresight to bring the genetics to, and the water to, and fencing that was before his time. He's, in every sense of the way, a true cowboy, and I think he would be very honored to be in the Cowboy Hall of Fame.